turn the wells have in fact failed at this moment. I think the Congo was nearer to communism perhaps when you were there, when Patrice Lumumba was in power, than they were when I left last week. Of course, the United Nations is an imperfect instrument with 99 nations disagreeing among themselves. But think of the alternative if the United States had intervened unilaterally. American soldiers would be at war, and I think the greatest indicator of the success of the United Nations effort there in terms of American self-interest is that the Russians are constantly trying to get the United Nations out of the Congo.
Well, NBC had 3 correspondents serving in the Congo. Let's hear from the other one. John Rich, what do you think?
Well, I'm for cooperation, Frank, but I think we're going to have to detach our foreign policy from blindly following the United Nations in an operation like the Congo. The Congo showed the danger of this. It showed how easily an operation could be hamstrung by a few nations, and we've got to maintain more freedom of action.
Sander?
The second thing, I'd like to make one more point here. We've got to do more right here at home to overcome our own racial problems, because if we don't, we're going to be dead in Africa.
Sander?
I think this last point, John, is well taken, because I think this is one of the reasons why Menon Williams was chosen from Michigan. He's got a very good record, Negro relations here. I don't know what good will do him in Africa, but it doesn't hurt any. And secondly, I don't think the Kennedy administration is going to give up on the UN right now as a vehicle to work its foreign policy in places like Africa. It's quite aware that the vote in the General Assembly has no relation to power politics. However, I think what it would like in Africa is to keep the Cold War out somehow. And I think that it'll do what it can, either in the UN or outside, to retrieve the Belgian Congo situation, but try and anticipate these situations before they arise.
Gentlemen, that is a sample. Perhaps it's too overwhelming, Sander, to be called simply a sample, but it is of the sort of difficulties that Kennedy will be encountering around the world. Frank Bergholzer, I wonder, what sort of an organization do you feel that Kennedy has put together in the State Department to help him with these tasks?
Well, we haven't seen it all yet, Frank. We've seen some of them. Dean Rusk, Adlai Stevenson, Chester Bowles, Paul Nitze, McGeorge Bundy. I think we have to include Douglas Dillon and Mr. Kennedy's very first appointment, Allen Dulles. There'll be no lack of initiative from this group. President-elect Kennedy, we must remember, also has made us a promise, and that is to adopt policies of attack and give up policies of reaction. The situation that he faces is that the other side has troubles too. Communism's leaders certainly have more need of their alliance even than we have of ours. And yet just look at the trouble they had a few weeks ago in Moscow finding areas of agreement. Both China and the Soviet Union have recently been forced to admit that they have agricultural troubles, big ones. This may be an opening for our side. And in these revolutions, the so-called underdeveloped countries, Asia, Africa, Latin America, it's a fact that the spirit of these revolutions is closer, when they begin at least, to Thomas Jefferson than to Karl Marx.